According to the Chinese global television network CGTN, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has now arrived in Tianjin for the SCO summit. His participation at the summit and his first visit to China in 7 years comes at a time of rapidly changing geopolitical environment. It's also important to note that the SCO summit brings together BRICS nations, Prime Minister Modi, Xi Jinping and President Putin all on the same platform. Ambassador Manju Seth is live with us as well, former diplomat. Ambassador Manju Seth, the big breaking news out of China is that Prime Minister Modi has arrived in Tianjin. That visit is now officially beginning, this much awaited visit.
Absolutely, it's an important visit and he has landed there, and I think this particular visit stands out from the previous SCO summit. So this is the normal SCO summit which has been taking place over the years, but yes, this particular one assumes special significance, both from the summit point of view and from the presence of PM Modi at this summit. And I think significance is further can be highlighted by the fact that President Trump's and the US's approach, the tariffs and in general, especially they've singled out India and PM Modi even as being responsible, even to going to the extent of saying that they are responsible for the war in Ukraine and things like that. So I think, and already we saw that the relationship between India and China had already started taking a positive turn. We'd already started improving, but I think all geopolitical churn and the geo-economic churn that has been set loose has further hastened the process of the bilateral ties being improved between China and India, and both looking to rebalance their ties. It may not be a dramatic shift at the moment or a dramatic change, but yes, it is the first step to resetting and rebalancing the ties with an important neighbor, and to also look at resetting resolving our boundary issues. And ensuring that peace and stability is maintained at the border, and also to look at our trade ties, which are very important. But yes, we need to increase our exports, and the Chinese have also, during Wang Yi's recent visit, their foreign minister's visit, China had assured India that critical supplies will be restarted towards India. Fertilizers and machinery and tunnel boring machines, etc., will be restarted, and some critical minerals as well. So I think all that is a pointer to the mutually beneficial relationship and the importance that both sides are attaching.
Yes, in fact, we're getting a breaking news coming in, a cultural performance also welcoming Prime Minister Modi there at the airport in Tianjin. A cultural performance by the Chinese being hosted for Prime Minister Modi, a red carpet welcome being accorded to the Prime Minister from India there. PM Modi, of course, landing for the SCO summit. Red carpet welcome for PM Modi there. These are live visuals coming in from the tarmac of the airport in Tianjin, where PM Modi has now arrived. Alok Mehta, editorial director of India News, is live with us. Alok Mehta, a cultural, ceremonial and red carpet welcome for the Indian Prime Minister. He has reached China after 7 years.
I think Udayji is a very historical occasion because, we have the conflict, the problems, and the world politics also changing. So I think this is a very important visit, not only just because of the Shanghai organization, but because the meeting of three top leaders, Xi Jinping, Putin, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. That's why we welcome, because Chinese are looking for not only the NRIs, but the other people also, the businessmen. They want to have a good economic relations with India. Now even Xi Jinping himself wrote to our President, a secret letter what recently disclosed everywhere, that they wanted good relations with India for long term. And that's why I think these kind of welcome and the coming sessions in the meeting and the bilateral meeting will be very, very important. Maybe because here the Pakistan will be also there. So on terrorism, how much in the resolution they will accept or not, we are not sure. But at least Prime Minister Narendra Modi openly in this conference summit also he will speak, and then in the bilateral talks with the Xi Jinping. And that's why the American pressure all over the world, what is happening there, the Western influence, or the European Union also, Chinese also have good relations, we also have good relations. So I think these kind of politics, and especially Ukraine and Russia, the conflict going on. So the role behind the curtain, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is taking a lot. That's why I think these kind of visits, and just one point, I remember 1993 when Narsi Rao visited at the time. You see, they started these relations and then up and down. Then the Vajpayee visit also, because I'm talking about the Congress, but Narsi Rao was also at the time open when Rajiv Gandhi also went there. But then our president Pratibha Patil also went there, and Manmohan Singh also went there. But I think because these kind of situation, what Prime Minister Narendra Modi started in 2014, when he took over as a Prime Minister, he took Xi Jinping to Ahmedabad. You did remember, very historical meeting of Xi Jinping in our own country. But afterwards, the incidents took place on border, and happening was there. But now, at least now the Chinese are interested, so it's a very crucial meeting. That's what I'm saying. It's a major development in the world politics, world economy, that if India, China, Russia, Iran, these kind of countries come together and committed for anti-terrorism and with good economic relations, I think it will change the whole world economic politics.
Yes. In fact, also joining us now is Andrew KP Leung, independent China strategist. He's live with us from London. How significant, Andrew, is this visit, according to you, for India-China ties going ahead? What is the anticipation in China like for the Indian Prime Minister's visit? What are you picking up from your conversations?
Well, the question is why now? Because the bilateral relationships have seen as more downs and up in the past. And then, of course, the various the Shanghai Operation Organization have existed for quite some time. So why is this moment important? Well, it's important because the whole world has changed. The American-led world order based on commonly accepted rules has been thrown out of the window in favor of American unilateralism, coercion, and bullying, not only against its perceived existential threat like China or to a certain extent Russia, but also on Americans' allies, including India, and of course even the transatlantic relationship with the European Union. So left, right, and center, the tariffs a wrecking ball is destroying a lot of the long-term trustful relationship, as Trump is seen to be a much less reliable and largely a hugely more unpredictable partner. And hence these dynamics are pushing countries like India and China together. Not that they are drawn together, because the two still a lot of unresolved conflicts and also rivalry, both in the region and around the world and amongst the Global South. But in spite of these differences, in spite of these conflicts, I think that these differences are likely to be set aside or not to be forgotten entirely, but focusing on areas of possible cooperation, selected areas, of course, not across the board, on common challenges like climate change, terrorism, but also on concrete matters that matters importantly to the Indian economy. For example, China's investments bring jobs to the Indian economy, and also, of course, sharing some of the technologies, for example, on batteries and heavy manufacturing equipment. So all these are substantive issues which could be addressed at a bilateral level, along with coordinating responses to a much changed world. Now, secondly, the SCO why now is also important because it's gained a lot of the key new members who are key players in the Global South. For example, it includes in the middle corridor, this is a kind of corridor that links China through Central Asia to Eurasia, bypassing the troubled ports in Russia, the so-called middle corridor countries, for example, Azerbaijan and Armenia, and also includes countries like Turkey and also Egypt, which are increasingly playing an important role in that region. It also includes, crucially, very powerful and wealthy countries in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia and Qatar and UAE, and even Kuwait, Bahrain. Also, some countries in the additional countries in Asia, like Cambodia and so on. So you can see that all the key players in the Global South are brought together at a time when their interests, the sovereignty, the development interests are being threatened by a Trump 2 administration, which is trying to bend the whole world to Americans' will, to suit Americans' selfish interests. So that's what's happening. Not that they're forming a bloc together against the United States, because no country wants to make the United States an enemy, but trying to recalibrate the relationship with the world, still the world's greatest superpower, but also trying to recalibrate their relationship with each other, between India and China, between India and other countries, including Russia, European Union. That's what's happening in this very special Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit.
Yes. Okay, let me take that back across to Dr. Ajay Dua if he's through with us now. Dr. Ajay Dua, I was trying to bring you in earlier on Prime Minister Modi's visit. He, of course, has now landed in China. Officially, this visit has now begun. How significant is this happening after 7 years? Also, the timing of it all with the changed geopolitical political equations that we're seeing across the world.
I think it's a very important visit. For one, it's taking place after 7 years. Second, we've noticed that despite our best of intentions, we've not been able to kind of, our trade with China has got impacted, and trade with China by and large means more imports. Our trade with China is 128 billion last year, out of which 114 were imports and 14 were exports. So we hardly have much of an exporter. So while we didn't have a good relationship, at the same time, our dependence on a lot of key sectors in the economy, including on our exports. For instance, smartphones, we talk about the highest item, $20 billion of exports last year of assembled smartphones from India. But 10 billion out of there are components. Similarly, pharmaceuticals. We talk about generic medicines, a very large exporter to the US, elsewhere. But where does the active pharma ingredients come from? Where does a simple item like erythromycin come from? In erythromycin, which we consume an antibiotic for almost everything in India, 98% of it comes from China. So apart from the things like rare earth, about which magnet making, the tunnel boring machine, an episode where the Chinese stopped their export to India, affected our high-speed rail project with Japan in Ahmedabad, Mumbai. Fertilizers, particularly DAP, the Chinese said there's a shortage in China, we need it for our farmers, but they didn't stop the supplies to either Bangladesh or to Pakistan. It was only kind of choking off India.
Yes.
So on the economic front, extremely important, and as has been pointed out, we need to have China with us, and China probably needs us as much. And that's been realized by the top leadership of the two countries. We were the two largest countries in the world. We can take care of, and second and fourth right now in the pecking order in terms of the size of the economy. The two going together with mutual respect, respecting one another's sensitivities and the interests, I think would be the best way forward for the two countries, and at the same time, I think the world would be a beneficiary because both of us believe in free trade. We're not talking about protectionism. China, with its great difficulty, had joined WTO, if you will recall, in 2001 too.
Yes.
And the WTO had kept it on kind of wait and watch, saying, let's see, do these guys open up or not?
Absolutely.
Because the principle of WTO is free trade, and now China has become a larger espouser of free trade than the Western countries led by the United States. So with more trade means greater prosperity for the whole world, as we've seen, allowing greater specialization, the production based on.
So those, of course, will be some of the focus points of Prime Minister Modi on his visit, is what you're clearly saying. Megha is also with us live now on the broadcast. Megha, what is the itinerary for the Prime Minister for tomorrow looking like, now that, of course, he has formally arrived in Tianjin?
Yes, he has arrived in Tianjin. In fact, he is now en route to his hotel where he will be staying for the next 2 days. I am right now, in fact, at Vanda Vista Hotel, which is the place where the Prime Minister is going to be residing for the next 2 days. And after he returns over here, after he comes to the hotel, there is, of course, a lot of fanfare with which he is going to be welcomed. There are hundreds and hundreds of people from the Indian community, the diaspora community, who are present over here. There is a whole song and dance about it. There are Bharatnatyam, Odissi dancers, and mind you, they're not Indians, they are Chinese who have learned these dance forms, and they're going to be performing for the Prime Minister. There are also some musical performances that have been lined up, that are scheduled for the Prime Minister's arrival over here. And then there are, of course, a number of Indian diaspora members from the business community who have traveled from the length and breadth of China just to be over here in Tianjin on the day when the Prime Minister arrives, just to get a glimpse of him, even perhaps a handshake or a quick selfie with the Prime Minister. But besides that, tomorrow is when the big ticket events take place, because the start of the day, which is tomorrow, August 31st, is 12 p.m. is when the Prime Minister is going to be holding his key bilateral with Xi Jinping, the President of China. President of China last met Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This was in Kazan, which was last year in October. And in fact, this is the first time in the last 7 years that the Prime Minister has visited China. The last time he was here was in 2018. This was during the informal summit that was again hosted by Xi Jinping in Wuhan for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So there are going to be a lot of things that the two leaders will have to talk about, whether it is about India-China bilateral relations, trade, where we talk about the Trump tariffs that are overshadowing the general scheme of things when it comes to the global South countries, including India and China. We talk about people-to-people connect, culture connect. Of course, we understand that just this time, for the first time in many, many years, that the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra has taken place, and that has been resumed after China gave it a go-ahead. In fact, the direct flights between India and China are going to be starting very, very soon. There are, in fact, visas that are now going to be processed by the Indian authorities as well as the Chinese embassy for Indian nationals and their Chinese counterparts.
In fact, Manju said, of course, the fact is that the focus is the SCO summit, but there is this very, very important, there are those two very, very important meetings, of course, bilateral meetings happening between, of course, Prime Minister Modi of India and Xi Jinping of China, and also Vladimir Putin of Russia, which are expected over the next 48 hours. How important are these two key bilateral meetings on the sidelines of the summit?
Is that for me?
Yes.
Yes, both these meetings, bilateral meetings, both with China, China's Xi Jinping, and Russia's Vladimir Putin, are extremely important and very significant as well. And given that the geopolitical, geoeconomic churn that is ongoing, especially the tariffs and India being linked literally to the war by Russia in Ukraine, I think all these issues will be on the table, including with China. China has also been hit by tariffs, but yes, they've been given a little more leeway. And India-China ties are being reset. I don't expect a major turnaround or a major breakthrough, but yes, definitely they will be reset, rebalanced, and I believe that we will be talking about, of course, trade, investments, and technical cooperation, energy cooperation. But at the same time, the bilateral relationship needs to be brought on at a level of trust. Some trust needs to be built into the relationship, and we, given our past experience, India's past experience with China, there is still an element of mistrust, a little bit still remains. So we have to be very careful and prepared at all times and not take everything at face value. But I think this visit and this meeting will help to set the course for further improvement in the bilateral relationship between India and China. With Russia also, as you're well aware, it is a good relationship. It's always been a very special relationship with Russia. And this meeting will again, I think, reiterate and cement and make this relationship stronger between India and Russia. But at the same time, we know that, again, the world situation is not what it was, and geoeconomic situation is not what it was. And we know that also we have to recognize that now Beijing and China and Russia also share a special relationship, which was not the case many years ago. So I think in previous years, now in recent years, this has become stronger. So that will, that has to be kept in mind. And also we find that the recent skirmishes, conflict with Pakistan, we saw that China did stand with Pakistan and did support them. And though Russia didn't support anyone, but still, yes, it was not as strongly supportive as it once was. So I think that relationship is important for us, but we have to to strengthen it, given that the relationship, the whole scenario, the whole geopolitical, economic scenario environment has changed, and then there are new realities, and we cannot depend on other countries, but we have to depend on ourselves.
Okay.
And I think this is an important aspect of the whole relationship, of all the meetings.
Absolutely. And very quickly on the SCO summit, Andrew Leung, what is the theme of this year's SCO summit? If you can just tell us a bit about the theme and, the focus areas for China's presidency, and of course also the SCO summit overall for 2025. Andrew, can you hear me?
So,
Okay,
yes, I can, yeah.
You're there with us now.
The SCO now is very different from the SCO, say, even a couple of years ago. I mean, it includes key players in the Global South, Turkey and Egypt, Middle East, and additional countries in Asia. At a time when the Global South is pushing back against the American unilateralism and bullying, and not to form a bloc, but also recalibrating relationship with each other and with the United States. Now, the SCO, likely the agenda this time is to promote a fairer, a more equitable, and more cooperative world environment. In other words, this is a response to American unilateralism, fracturing the whole world rule-based order in favor of American first. So the world is supposed to be shared equitably amongst members of the world community. And I think that this is a very important agenda item for representatives in this very important summit. The kind of cooperation, as I said, not to form a bloc, but to address common issues like climate change, pandemics, terrorism, and denuclearization, and development challenges. For example, there is a much greater area for cooperation between India and China, by China supplying this kind of elite equipment, particularly heavy tunnel drilling equipment to help India to grow its infrastructure, but also to establish perhaps some of the manufacturing processes in India, helping to grow local jobs and so on. And of course, the China market welcomes more Indian exports in terms of maybe even cuisine, tourism, and definitely more and more people-to-people exchanges. I think that this kind of cooperation also speaks to the rest of the members of the SCO. Because it's only through concrete projects like this, maybe even including more tourism, people-to-people exchanges between universities and institutions, and these concrete projects would build trust. It's not trust is not just what you say that, oh, I trust you or you trust me. And it depends even aside from intention.
Okay.
It's got to build on concrete examples.
Okay, let me in fact quickly address some breaking inputs coming in now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, upon landing in Tianjin, China, has taken to social media and he's written, arriving in Tianjin, China, looking forward to engaging in in-depth discussions during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit and meeting with leaders from various countries, quote unquote. So the first statement by Prime Minister Modi coming out on his social media platform X after landing in Tianjin. The Prime Minister has put forth his expectations from the summit, Alok Mehta, and his key meetings.
Prime Minister always very active, and he want to do a very good business also. You know, even Trump accepted that he is a very good businessman. He is very difficult to negotiate with him. So I think he will prove that he wants a good relations with China. He wants good relations with Central Asia. You know, just the new point. I think the other point we discussed, but I think the Central Asia relations, because of the tariff, we can have better trade with the Central Asian countries and the African countries. These kind of forum ultimately will help to boost our trade with those countries. And that's why the Chinese, they also have good relations with Pakistan and Turkey. So to keep balance, and don't forget, we still want to keep open with strategic relations with the United States, where our Western countries. What the Chinese also doing? China is also doing the business with the Americans. So maybe Trump will go in after 3-4 years, but maybe even when says, okay, anytime I will be president. So, you know, we don't want that we will just lose the American and we say, okay, we are totally pro-Chinese or pro-Soviet like in the Congress regime. I think these kind of no confusion, and that's why I think the Prime Minister is very calculative. When in this Shanghai, Udayji will surprise. 15 years back, I've seen in Shanghai, our businessmen, including Adani, was there in some plant. So we also give them employment to those people in Chinese. So China also wants more cooperation. Elon Musk is going there. And Elon Musk is already there, but they want good business with India too. Elon Musk coming in India too. So these kind of Americans or Chinese or world trade, I think the India is also becoming a superpower in different way. Maybe because of the tariff attack by the Trump, maybe it's a temporary. Even the judiciary also says this is illegal what the Trump is doing. But even then, we are not bothered. Prime Minister says, okay, we will protect our farmers, we will protect our interests, we will protect our security. And that's why on the strategical issue, terrorism will be main agenda. We talk with the Xi Jinping that's why they should not give so much cooperation to Pakistan on at least for terrorism. They should condemn and control Pakistan.
Okay, let me leave the last word to you, Ajay Dua, on what you hope will be the outcome of this key visit. Action-packed 3 days ahead. Or rather today, of course, 1 day and then 2 more days ahead. But what do you hope will be the outcome of this visit?
Uday, the bilateral discussions, I consider them as important as the SCO meeting by itself. And in the bilateral, I expect that President Xi Jinping will, after meeting and being assured about India's interest in being a long-term friend of China, he will start the de-escalation process on the border. Even after the meetings last year, between our NSA and the foreign minister of China, there may not have been an escalation, but certainly the troops haven't been withdrawn. As the winter approaches, I think that's urgently required that on the area, the geography about which there is dispute, the two sides withdraw to the lines where it has been agreed to, even if it's temporarily. Second, they also expedite the settlement of the border dispute, which has been lingering for the last 65 years or 63 years and saw the 62 war with China. So I would expect that, and I'm optimistic that if these two issues get sorted out,
Yes.
the Indian leaders, Indian public will feel very reassured, and they will go in for much more economic, much more investment opening up. Those kinds of things would follow, but first we wish to be assured
Okay.
that
My thanks to our guests for joining us on this broadcast. We've run totally out of time. Let's slip into a short break.